out.
Actually, when I was a young guy and I managed a small town in Illinois, I would go plow snow on occasion.
Oh, would you really?
I had a commercial driver's license, but for me, it was all fun at the time. I didn't have to do it, but I would do it on occasion.
Yeah. Well, a small town's different than town
Yeah.
size. I mean, Fort Dodge is hardly a metropolis, of course, but
No.
it takes a few hours to get it done.
Yeah.
A few drivers. How many drivers did you have out on the road?
Oh, we would have, I think, 5 or 6 out doing it.
5 or 6 drivers?
Yeah, and so in the little town of Savoy, we had 2 in big
Savoy,
trucks.
Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd have 2 in big trucks and maybe 3 or 4 in pickups doing things here. Unlike here where we have, quite a few people out in any given time.
How many guys we have out?
Oh, see, now you're going to ask me to get it right. Now I might get it wrong, and someone will tell me if I'm wrong. So I think we have 2 per route. So we got 10 trucks out, and then we put the loaders in the alleys, and we'll do some pickup trucks loaders on the cul-de-sacs, pickup trucks in the alley. So we have like 3 or 4 loaders out. So usually there's a crew of about, I'd say it's close to 15. And then on a bad storm, then you got 50, they work 12 hours on and they work 12 hours off, and then they come back on. Fortunately, we did a pretty good job and had most of the work done within 12 hours.
Oh, my compliments to your staff there. I mean, I get up fairly early, 6:30 in the morning, and they'd already been by. And so I went out and cut out a path so I could get my garbage barrel out to the street, and they came by again. So I had to go and do it twice, but that's okay. That's all right. Actually, the snowplow guy helped me out. Not the snowplow guy, but the guy who has a snow blower, who was running around the street there, blowing all kinds of snow. But anyway, it's what did we get? 10 inches of snow, I think.
Yeah, we were estimating somewhere between 8 and 10. It blew around a lot, so it was different amounts at different places.
Yeah. Well, it's January in the Midwest.
Yeah. But our guys did a great job in getting the streets cleared.
So budgets is happening both at the county and city level. Actually, the county hasn't quite started it yet, but I think they're getting to it here. So where are we as far as the city budget is concerned?
So as far as the review process, we're almost done. We'll have one meeting, a special workshop on Monday, February 1st, where we'll do a general fund recap and then talk about our tax levy and estimate what our tax levy is going to be. And so that'll be Monday. And that's kind of an important meeting, with their general fund. It's always tight and hard to make balance. So we usually end up making cuts and making modifications. So we'll go over those with the city council. And then the key thing is determining what our tax levy is going to be for the next year. So that'll be all discussed on Monday. And then we got to set hearings and have public hearings on our tax levy and our budget and all that stuff. We'll be finished out in February and early March.
Oh, well, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the biggest budget item, of course, is staff and benefits. What direction do you see that heading? The reason I'm asking is Supervisor Dinklaw was in here at 3:00, and he indicated that the county workers might, big emphasis there on might, get a raise this year. As soon as they're going to have to dig a little further into the budget to really find out. And he said, well, if we can't afford it, we won't give them a raise. However, if we can, there's a possibility they'll get one. I have a feeling they're going to get one. Because Keith is the Republican in the crowd,
So he's got to pretend to be fiscally conservative.
No, he is physically.
I know.
You know how Republicans are. They want to spend money on anything.
So, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm an expert with county finances because I am completely not.
Well, no, I'm not asking about the county, but I'm asking.
Some of the differentials with the city finances is, a lot of the salaries and salary increases are predetermined because we are predominantly
contract, I suppose.
Predominantly, union and collective bargaining agreements, and we also benchmark like non-union increases off our AFSCME union, our public works union.
Right.
It just seems like that's a kind of a simple way to do it, just to benchmark off of that for the salary increases. So those are kind of set. And then, but last night was when we talk about benefits, a lot of that is the big one is the municipal fire and police pensions.
Yeah, sure.
Which
the pensions.
Yeah, which we don't control because there's a pension board. The cities participates in that organization. I don't think we can get out of it, but the pension board sets the rate, and the rate is based on your payroll.
Is this the city and county pension board? Or
no, the county does not participate in municipal fire and police pension system.
Who's on the county board of pensions?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know. So this is a statewide pension board.
Okay,
and then they set the rate, and then the city has to pay into that based on their payroll. So the way we could control it is reduce payroll, and you reduce for payroll by reducing staff. So so that isn't something we're going to do. And then also in there is IPERS, which is the non-police and fire pension system, which again is a statewide pension system we participate in. They set the rates and the amounts. Then we have our health insurance is also part of that as well, and it's steady. I mean, Wellmark is increasing their portion by I think 5%. Now, whether that translates in a 5% increase at our level, I don't know. But I mean, we insure, with employees and family, we're insuring over 500 people. So
really,
and then
I'm surprised that exists in our city. First of all, Fort Dodge has always been a strong union town, especially when we had the packing plants here.
Yeah.
But Iowa as a whole is such an anti-union state that it would be interesting. I don't know how you find the history of these things, but how these municipal and county pension plans and salaries in the board all came to be.
Yeah, and I don't know the history. I mean, I can, in my opinion, I think the Iowa public employee pensions are actually run pretty well in comparison as far as there are a lot of state pensions that were struggling, that were not even funded, whereas Iowa's pensions are pretty well funded. I think they do a pretty good job of managing them.
I'm not questioning that.
So, but yeah,
Illinois, your home state, is always given as an example, especially Chicago is always given as an example of a city or state that's going to collapse under its own pension obligations.
Yeah, their pensions are kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's getting to be like, where's the money going to come from?
Well, and that's going to happen is you get too many people that are on the pension, not paying into the pension, you got a problem. So,
yes,
same thing with where Social Security is heading too. You have more people eligible for Social Security than ever before, and less people paying into it. So,
well, I hope they can hang on a little while longer.
Yeah,
I hope they can hang on with that Social Security stuff a little while longer, but you never know. Never know. So, do you anticipate, or how do I want to ask this question? I know this is up to the council, but do you anticipate an increase in wages for the municipal employees?
Yeah, there'll be the most of
just
the employees
the contractual obligation
are under a contractual obligation.
Right. Is that all that they would be getting, or did we have a good year? Or
no, well, we don't have like a bonus plan. I mean, so it's either a contractual obligation or for an individual that might get their cost of living adjustment, and then also we also have in our payment plans that like after a certain number of years of service, they get a step increase, like a seniority increase. That's in our payment system too. So, there'll be a mix of just, cost of living adjustments, which is generally around 3%.
Sure.
Is the easiest way to benchmark it about the increase that staff get on a year-to-year basis.
That's essentially, is 3% really a cost of living increase, the way we used to refer to it as? That was something that was so important in contract negotiations back when this city was a city and had regular battles over wage increases.
Yeah.
But is 3% even a reasonable cost of living increase anymore? Or
well, I think it is. I mean, it's one of the interesting things about public sector bargaining is it's already a pretty scripted dance, right? So you have,
and that came together over the many years,
because one of the things that makes it so scripted is you can't strike, that everything is settled through binding arbitration if there's an impasse. So with their inability to strike, and the fact that an impasse is going to be settled by an arbitrator, a third-party arbitrator,
Right.
the arbitrator is going to look for certain things, like what are other cities your size giving for wage increases? What does their benefit packages look like? So what happens is everybody, when I mean everybody, I mean most cities that have collective bargaining agreements, they tend to do about the same thing every year. They may structure it a little different. Like some may give 3% on July 1. What we tend to do is give 1.5% on July 1 and 1.5% on January 1. It's a little bit easier on the budget, but you still get the 3% gain if you're an employee. And some may stagger it a little differently. They may, you see union contracts that may be like a 2.5% for a couple of years, and then maybe 3.5%. There's a whole bunch of different things, and usually that's more of a, there's some local thing they're trying to resolve or unique with them. But if you looked across the board, you're going to see, I would say salary increases that are going to average around 3%. Some might be 3.25%, some might be 2.75%, and there could be reasons for that. When there were years when we were requiring our employees to pay a little more in health insurance, that we paid a little bit more in wages, and that's just kind of how the game works. Well, but it is, like I said, there's not a whole lot of you can't go too far off the range, because an arbitrator ultimately is going to bring you back and say, no, you're not being realistic. It's got to be here. Like we couldn't hold the ground and say, okay, we're only going to give 0.5% increase for the next 3 years, because an arbitrator would say, no, that's not realistic.
Okay. So as far as the retirement programs for, let's just say fire and police, because those are probably the two biggest departments, aren't they? Is 20 years the mark when they can retire at full benefits, or more than that, or is it an age type thing?
I feel embarrassed to not know the specifics, but so for municipal fire and police, their retirement eligible is a little earlier because it's a little more of a physical job, whereas so that they pay into it at a higher rate than, let's say, the other employees do, and then the city pays into it as a higher rate. And then there's usually a retirement that's earlier. I think you can work as 65, but I think people can be eligible in their mid 50s, which probably makes sense with that kind of career, because it's hard it's hard to work. And again, maybe more, if you get into more of an administrative role, maybe you can work a little longer, but a patrol person or just a firefighter, it's tough when you get it.
Well, I'd hate to be 55 years old and still trying to rustle some drunk in the back of a police car or something. Of course, we don't have that problem nearly as much as we used to.
And then for other city employees, at IPERS, there's different rules. There's like rules of 88, which is years of service plus age, gets you, if you're at 88, then you're retirement eligible. And that's at a certain level. And people can choose to retire a little bit earlier, and their benefits can be a little less. They had a little less of a percentage of but it usually ends up a certain number of years in, you get a certain percentage of your pay. So, and I'm not in either plan, so I don't know them intimately. we can get our HR director on here and talk about employee pensions, and Jamie Anderson could give you all the ins and outs of employee pensions.
Well, I'm glad you're being a little more flexible with city employees. You were a little freaked out about having them come over here and talk to me there for a while. That's quite all right. Now, what are speaking of Jamie Anderson, what are her responsibilities as an HR director?
Well, we were just talking about it, but she is the lead negotiator for the city. So we negotiate.
Her. Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, we just approved the police contract last night. So that was one that she worked on. And there's a team of us. I'm on the team, and for the police contract, Roger and then Corey and folks are also on the team. But she's the lead for that. She does all the work and preparation. Basically, manages all the benefits, and then she oversees all the hiring, which is a big deal in a city our size, and coming up with that process, and then working on folks when they're retiring, and then whatever else comes up. I mean, this year has been a tough year because of COVID, because there were so many things you had to figure out on the fly and try to develop meaningful policies
This COVID is a sucker, boy.
During the pandemic. And
I'm not talking about just getting COVID, but it screwed up our lives so bad for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it just made a lot of things difficult on how you try to have a workforce, try to keep a workforce working and safe and all that. And with a little knowledge, and I joked with her one time. I said, let's just write our personnel policy, our COVID policy on a blackboard, because we are changing it that frequently. Yeah, there are times where we would change it a couple times in a week. There'd be a different, and I'm not picking on the governor, but there would be different things that came out, proclamations, and we're like, oh yeah, we got to adjust our policy because to be that. So we were constantly sending out policy revisions to deal with that.
Sure.
Back when was that, April, May time period.
Now, you mentioned that you resolved the police department's contract last night. Where did they get a raise last night, or did they get how'd that all work out?
Yeah, so it's a 1-year contract, so we'll be negotiating again.
Why only a 1 year? That seems like that's a tough way to go.
That's kind of short. Usually we would go longer than that. And there's some things that we want to see it's a really kind of a unique year for there, and I don't want to get too much into it because it's not really my thing to talk about. But there wasn't a whole lot of members of the department that were actually representing the union on the contract negotiations, and so we do like, hey, let's just try to keep this as status quo and as short as possible so that we can, get if the union can get some stuff sorted out, and then we'll get back to normal. But we did a year that was a 2% increase July 1 and then a 2% increase on January 1, which is equivalent of a 3% increase because one of those 2% increases is only for 6 months. So and then we worked out there were some additional things in there for our CID, our criminal investigations division, because one of the things is they end up being pretty busy and working a lot of overtime, and there's a lot of callbacks. So we found a way to kind of compensate them for the pretty much being on call a lot.
Sure.
And so we worked that into the contract as well.
Okay. So you mentioned Roger and Corey, great guys.
Yes, very much so.
And they're not affected by the contract. Are they? They're managers, so they have their separate deal?
Yes.
How many managers do we have at the police department? We have the chief of police, obviously.
Yeah, you have the chief of police, then you have the assistant chief, and then the 2 captains are not in
they have their own
union. They don't have a separate collective bargaining agreement. They just fall under the personnel policy. And then
the personnel policy.
Which is the so at the city you have the collective bargaining agreements for those that are covered by them. For those who aren't covered by a collective bargaining agreement, you basically have a personnel policy, which again isn't necessarily an agreement between the city and the employees. It's the policy of how we're going to handle things like benefits and other things that you could think of that, in personnel policies, behaviors and things like that, and disciplinary actions and all that stuff. And we try as best at Fort Dodge to have it, be very similar to like what someone would have in a collective bargaining agreement, so that we're not end up with an unlevel playing field. So for the 4 management staff, they fall under the personnel policy, and there's also 3 administrative staff that also are non-union that would fall under quote unquote management or the just the personnel policy.
Same way with the fire department, I assume, or the street department, or any of those.
Yeah, it's going to same thing.
Are they all in that same type of thing? If we had more time, I'd follow up a little bit more with you on this. But
you think of a fire and police and streets, they have 3 separate contracts, 3 separate labor unions, and then
they do.
Yeah, because you have the international firefighters represent the fire department, and you got AFSCME representing.
Why didn't I think of that?
AFSCME representing the public works.
Right.
So then, anyways, I forgot the question here. What was the question again? Well, you have management people.
I thought it was the same.
Yeah, it's not.
And I realized it was a foolish question. Now, I ask if all the managers of the various departments, police, fire, street, whatever what Parks and Rec, whatever department they're in, would all be covered.
They would be non-union management. Yeah.
Okay. Well, non-union management. I mean, there's employees, for example, in the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, they're on the union too.
All right. Okay, good enough. And they're under a different union.
Actually, Parks and Rec is in AFSCME. They're in the same union as Public Works.
Okay, good.
And there's actually a few in utility billing that are covered by AFSCME as well, and the library.
Sure. The library, I forgot about that.
And there's another little wrinkle. It's in the AFSCME union, but they actually have a separate collective bargaining agreement, which is because it's, kind of library. It's the same. No, it's not the same union, but they're the same overall union. Two different contracts, but they kind of mirror themselves. Whatever one gets for wages, the other one gets for wages. Okay. And then there's just unique librarian stuff in one and Public Works stuff in the other.
There's always, a little unique action going on there. All right, David Ferrick, City Manager, has been our guest. Thank you, David.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Ell.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Yes, 4:31 news is next.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Geis. I tried everything to control my anxiety. Nothing worked. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't run my business. Anxiety